affair with the enemy, the bed scene after which they were never forgiven. Lena traced the rim of her wineglass, the city lights of rival metropolis Viridia blurring into a constellation of broken promises below. Across the table, Marcus Sterling, CEO of Sterling Corp, her company's fiercest competitor, watched her with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified her. For months, they had been locked in a brutal corporate war, a battle of patents, market share, and public perception. But behind the boardroom doors, a different kind of war was being waged, one of stolen glances, lingering touches, and late-night calls that blurred the line between enemy and something else. Tonight was the annual Innovators Gala, a supposed truce where industry titans mingled under crystal chandeliers. But for Lena and Marcus, it was a powder keg. "You looked stunning, Lena," Marcus said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the polite chatter of the room. He wasn't supposed to affect her like this. He was the man trying to dismantle everything she had built. "Don't," she replied, her voice tight. "We both know what this is. A game." Marcus leaned in, his cologne a familiar, dangerous scent. "Is it? Or is it the only real thing in this entire room?" His words were a spark, and the air between them crackled with an energy that had been building for far too long. He stood, extending a hand. "Walk with me." Against every rational thought, she took it. They found themselves on the deserted rooftop terrace. The wind whipped around them, but Lena felt a heat that had nothing to do with the temperature. "My board is pushing for a hostile takeover. Lena," Marcus confessed, "is back to the city. They see weaknesses. They want to gut your company." Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The final move. "And you? What do you want?" Marcus, who turned, his eyes searching hers in the dim light. "I want to burn the boardrooms down and build something new." "With you?" The proposition was insane. A merger of this magnitude was impossible, a fantasy born from forbidden desire. But the way he said it felt like a lifeline. Too. He stepped closer, closing the last inch of space between them. "This is madness," she whispered, as much to herself as to him. "Then let's be mad," he murmured, before his lips met hers. The kiss was everything their rivalry was not. It wasn't a battle, it was a surrender. A torrent of suppressed emotion unleashed under the silent watch of the stars. All the tension, the anger, the secret admiration, it all melted away into a single, undeniable truth. They were two sides of the same coin. The short walk from the terrace to his penthouse suite felt like a dream. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to go back to her life, to the safety of her war. But she couldn't. Not tonight. Tonight, she needed to see this through, to understand what lay on the other side of hatred. The door clicked shut behind them, sealing them off from the world. The room was minimalist, powerful, just like him. Black leather, polished chrome, and a floor-to-ceiling window that mirrored the one in her own office. They were perfect reflections of each other. As their clothes fell to the floor, so did their armor. She wasn't the CEO of Omnicorp, and he wasn't the titan of Sterling Corp. They were just Lena and Marcus, two people caught in a storm of their own making. The night was a blur of passion and whispered confessions. They shared secrets that no press release would ever capture, vulnerabilities hidden behind stock prices and quarterly reports. In the darkness, wrapped in his arms, Lena allowed herself to believe his impossible promise. A new world, built together. It felt like absolution. Like a beginning, she'd no idea it was the end. Lena awoke to the cold light of dawn and an even colder emptiness beside her. Marcus was gone. A folded piece of paper sat on the pillow where his head had been. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The note was short, brutal, and written on Sterling Corp letterhead. Thank you for the insider information. The weaknesses you confirmed last night will be invaluable for the takeover. Business is business. The words didn't register at first. Insider information. She replayed their conversation, her blood running cold. Her late-night ramblings about her company's struggles, her fears about her new project's vulnerability. She hadn't been confessing to a lover. She had been debriefing an enemy. Her phone buzzed violently on the nightstand. It was her Lena. Turn on the news. Sterling just initiated a hostile takeover. They announced it an hour ago. They know everything. It's like they were in our heads. Lena stared at her reflection in the vast window. The city lights were gone, replaced by the harsh, unforgiving light of day. She saw a fool, a woman who had traded her empire for a single night of weakness. The betrayal was absolute, a surgical strike to her heart and her legacy. He hadn't just defeated her in business, he had annihilated her as a person. The media storm was a hurricane. Headlines screamed of her incompetence, her naivety. CEO seduces, rival loses everything. Her board, her employees, the very people she had fought for, looked at her with a mixture of pity and contempt. She was a pariah. Jet not only failed them, she had willingly handed the enemy the keys to their kingdom. They would never forgive her. How could they, when she could never forgive herself? Years passed. Sterling Corp absorbed Omnicorp, and Marcus Sterling's empire grew to unprecedented heights. He was lauded as a genius, a visionary who played the game better than anyone else. No one spoke of how he won. Lena disappeared from the public eye, her name a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms. She moved to a small coastal town, trading her power suits for worn jeans and her penthouse view for a small cottage overlooking the ocean. She expected to live a life of quiet regret, haunted by the ghost of her former self. One day, a package arrived. It was heavy, wrapped in simple brown paper with no return address. Inside was a thick, leather-bound journal. The handwriting was unmistakably his. Her first instinct was to burn it. But curiosity, that old, familiar traitor, won out. She opened it. It was Marcus's private journal dating back to the months before the takeover. She read about his own pressures, the relentless demands of his board. A group of sharks who wanted to see her fail, not for business reasons, but for personal ones. They saw her as a threat to their old boys' club. Then she got to the entry from the night of the gala. He wrote about his conflict, his genuine admiration for her, his insane idea to merge their companies. He had meant it. But the final entries, written in the weeks after the takeover, revealed the true, devastating twist. His board had known about their secret affair. They had blackmailed him. It was simple. Initiate the hostile takeover, using the leverage he had. They would leak fabricated photos and ruin Lena's reputation in a way that had nothing to do with business, painting her as unstable and erratic. They would destroy her utterly, personally and professionally. He was given a choice: take her company or let them destroy her soul. He chose the lesser of two evils. He chose to be the villain in her story to save her from a fate far worse. The takeover was his brutal, twisted way of protecting her. The final page was a single sentence, written recently. I hope, one day, you'll understand. I live with the consequences every day. I lost the only thing I ever truly wanted to build. Lena closed the journal, the sound echoing in the quiet cottage. The waves crashed against the shore, washing away years of hatred, replacing it with a profound, aching understanding. He hadn't been her enemy, he had been her shield, disguised as a sword. They were both victims of a game far bigger than their own. She was never forgiven by her world for what she had lost, and he was never forgiven by his for what he had won. They were two lonely monarchs of broken kingdoms, forever bound by a sacrifice no one else would ever understand. And in that shared silent ruin, Lena finally found a strange, heartbreaking peace. The anger was gone. All that remained was the quiet tragedy of an affair with the enemy. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more.